get started at the very bottom of 94B, last line. We've been talking about the rules and places. There are different kinds of places where they announce every day, or if there was a treifa in the marketplace, then people have to be careful about buying from an Oved Kochavim because it might be the treifa. But if there were so if it's in a place where it's announced, then if there's no announcement, then you can assume that the rove of most of the butchers in town are kosher. So you can rely on the rove that any meat you buy in the marketplace is kosher. Um, but in the place where there's no announcement done, then of course you have to assume every day that there could be a treifa in the marketplace. There was a butcher who said to his colleague, "I have a paisis minai. If we were on good terms, Milo Safielach Mishor Shel Patam of the Esmal, I would have given you, a choice cut of meat from the shechita I did yesterday." Amarle, in other words, we're not on good terms, so ha ha ha, I'm not giving you anything. Or I didn't give you anything. Amarle, achle mishufrei shufrei. So he said, you know what? I had like the best, the absolute best cut of meat yesterday from your ox. Amarle minoach, how'd you get it? Amarle, dezavin ploni ovid kochavim v'safali, because this certain ovid kochavim bought it from you and sold it to me. Amarle treyavde. He said, well, you know what? Maybe there were two oxes that I slaughtered. The one I'm talking about was kosher, and I didn't give you any. Vahu treifahava, the one that you bought from the Ovid Kochavim, that's because I sold the treifa one to the Ovid Kochavim. Um, so this indicates that um, this and so. So if there was no announcement, then what was he doing buying meat from Novi Kochavim? I mean, he could have if there was no announcement. Uh, he could have bought the meat from an Ovid Kochavim. The assumption here is that it's a place where there would have been an announcement, and yet we see that there's a problem that there may have been. This butcher is claiming that that a treifa got into the marketplace even though there was no announcement. I'm a Rebbe, so Rebbe said, "B'shul shot because this idiot butcher that behaved improperly, ununes or kol hamakulin, we're gonna forbid everything in the marketplace? I don't think so." And Rebbe Latame, and Rebbe is consistent. The Amar Makulin the Tabacha Yisrael. If you have a meat market and most of the butchers in town are Jewish, Basar Nimtza B'Yad Kochavim Mutar, you can buy from a Ovid Kochavim shop. Um, so, in other words, Rebbe is saying that just because this guy behaved improperly doesn't mean we have to mess up the whole system. Ikadiyam, right? Some say, Amar Rebbe, Mipnei Shotazed Yichavim L'Tzauri L'Chavri, Anu Nasser Kol Makoli. Now, Rebbe was saying what? Because of this guy who wanted to distress his fellow. In other words, in this version, we're saying that there was never any treifa here. This guy's just messing with his colleague that he doesn't like. So we're not gonna step in and change the rules. Tama, according to this version, it's because he wanted, because there was a clear motive for him to say that, but we assume that it wasn't the case. But if that wasn't the case, also, so then you're saying that according to this version, if it weren't for the fact that we had uh, some other peg to hang our hat on, we have the ability to say that, oh, this guy was just trying to mess with the other guy to make him upset. But if that weren't the case, then maybe what Rebbe would have said that you do say that this is a problem. Vatanya, but we have a brisa, Rebbe Yomer. Makulin v'tavach Yisrael basrim tzviyah kochavim mutar. But Rebbe also said that it's okay. So, which is it? Like, is it that does Rebbe hold that there's a problem with having knowing that there's a treifa in the marketplace or not? So Shani Hakadis Chazik Yisura. No, there's a difference because here the butcher is saying that I sold, a treifa in the marketplace. It's on a regular day when everybody's, abiding by the rules, or we're assuming that everybody's abiding by the rules. And if there's no announcement, there's no treifa. But here, the guy, like, he upset the apple cart by saying, "Oh, I released a treifa into the marketplace without telling anybody." Okay, I'm a Rav. Basar, Kevin Shinselmin Ayin Aser. Rav said, um, if it is unsupervised for a time, then you can't eat it anymore. Right? Kosher meat, you left it on the table, you put it on your table in the backyard, you left the room, or you went inside, and nobody was keeping an eye on the meat, and you come back, you're not allowed to eat it anymore. Meisvei. Rabbi Omer. And by the way, we must have seen this before, right? Or is it further on? But the reason is, does Rashi bring it here? Um, Yeah, Rashi about the middle of the page, and he's telling me that Ayin Shayashach Hashlaro, Mafilo Emunach Hashulchano. Also, it's forbidden Shema Nischalef Benavela because maybe a bird came along and exchanged it. A bird carried another piece of meat, decided he liked the one on the table better, dropped the piece he was holding, which is not kosher, and took the other one, and you didn't see it. So that's why you always have to have supervision on the meat, according to Rav. Um, so Meisvei, so they asked Rabbi Omer Makun Tabari Yisrael Basrim Suyalo Kochavim Mutar. Rabbi says if the in a case like this where you have a open marketplace but all the butchers are Jewish, so you can buy from a non-Jew, right? Uh, um, so even though uh, there was no Jewish person supervising it once it was sold to the Ovid Kochavim, we say the Rebbe says mutar. So why not just nimtza b'yad Kochavim shane? If it's found in the store of Ovid Kochavim, that's good enough. In other words, this is not like hashgacha that it has to be a Jewish person who knows the rules of shita. This is just like nobody's going to let a bird come and exchange meat. So as long as the Ovid Kochavim was under his care, it's still considered kosher. Tashma. We'll have try to examine this again. Tesha chanuyas kulim mochros b'sar shchuta. You have the class. This is the classic chazaka, or classic rove. If you have 9 stores in town that all sell kosher meat, ve'achas mocheres b'sar nevela, and one sells non-kosher meat. B'lakach me'achas mihen, and you bought meat from one of the stores. Ve'yodei me'ez me'en lakach, but he doesn't remember which store he bought it from. Sveiko aser. There, you cannot eat it. You have to. It's a suffix, and you're not sure if it's kosher or not. You can't eat it. Uvinitza. But if you find it, it's not that you don't remember which store you bought it from. You found it on the street and you don't know which store it came from. Then halecha charov. Then you can go by the rove. 9 stores sell kosher meat and one sells non-kosher meat. This meat is considered kosher. Okay, so even though it was left unsupervised, right? Nimtza is a case of unsupervised. It was left in the street. Nobody's looking after it. Um, so um, so why do you say mutter? It was Buster and Salmin Ayin. So Gemara says, "Hachanami ben nimtza b'yalav kachavim." No, we're talking about when it says nimtza, you find it. You find it that some random person who's an Ovid Kochavim wants to sell it to you. Okay, and you don't know where it came from. Well, the rove is that it's kosher, so it's fine. You can eat it. Toshma. Matzah babasar, if you find meat, imchai, which is raw, halecha charov tabachim, go by the majority of butchers in town. If you mavushal, but if it's cooked, halecha charov ochle basar. Then the rov you follow is, do most people eat kosher or not? So if it's a town where it's majority Jewish and you assume they all keep kosher, then it's fine. If it's a town that's not majority Jewish, even though most of the butchers in town are Jewish, that's a different rove. Um, so uh, so if the but what does this price say about if it's the meat is raw, then then it's fine. Go by the rove of the butchers, right? There's mostly Jewish butchers, so it's fine to eat this meat. But isn't it a case of basher shani salim in ayin? And here you want to answer the same thing. Not you found it in the street, but you found it. It was in the possession of an ovid kochavim. Mavushal halechach harov ochle basar. Would you say still that if it's cooked, then go with the most people who eat um, like if most people are eating kosher meat or not, v'nechse. Even though kochavim naket lay, if the non-Jew is is holding it, you just naket lay. If a Jew is holding it, right? If it's cooked meat, you assume who the guy who followed the practice of the guy, not of the Rove, but of the guy who had the meat. So you can't say that here this is a case where. Um, this is a case of where you found it in the hand of another person. Of course, is what you're talking about here. You saw somebody drop the package of meat. You don't know who it was. Nobody else picked it up, but it's been supervised by you the whole time, right? You saw somebody else drop it, and you're looking at it and walking over there and picking it up. Um, so this is not a case of basar shenisal ayin. That's why it is kosher. Tashma, another proof. Nimsa b'gvulam. What about meat that you find outside of the mikdash or outside of Yerushalayim? Evarim, if it's limbs, right? So this is like you find a whole leg of lamb, right? It hasn't been butchered yet. Um, so if it's in limbs, then we assume nevelos. Chatichos, but if it's butchered and it's packaged as rib steaks or ground meat or whatever, mutaros, then it is permitted. Okay, so uh, um, and here we're talking about where you find it in the street, and isn't it vasash and salminayin? You want to say, well, maybe we'll answer the same thing that you saw somebody drop it, and you were looking at it until you picked it up, so it was never unsupervised. If that's the case, if that's what we're talking about, then why would you say it's usher to eat the avari? Why would you assume they're nevela? Where it says midi hu tama el rav. Oh wait, so is this you're talking about Rav's opinion? Hayimar Allah, Rav Amar. Rav says mutaros mishum nevela. Rav says indeed, there's not a problem of nevela even if it's avarim. Um, so you can say in this case that we might be talking about where you saw somebody drop it and you watched it until then, and Rav says about it that it's fine because it's not basar shenisal in line. The Levi Amar mutaros b'achila, and Levi said you can even eat them. I'm sorry, I missed that out. Mutaros mishum nevela. No, Rav said whether they mutar from the tuma of nevela, but Rav indeed would say it's usher to eat them. If Levi Amar mutaros b'achila, it's Levi who says that you can eat them. So Rav is consistent here. Indeed, he says it's basar shenisal minayin. You can't eat it, but you don't have to worry about tuma. The Rav love beferish Yitmar. And by the way, this isn't Rav's opinion that he said explicitly. Elami klala Yitmar. We figured it out from his rulings. The Rav Yosef Mabra de Ishtatis. Rav was sitting at the crossing of a river. Chazia Gavra Machvar Resha, and he saw somebody who was like butchering the head of an animal. Okay, was I don't know preparing it for consumption or whatever. Nafamine, and it fell into the river. Also, I say salta. So he went and he got a basket. Shada, and he threw the basket into the river. He's dredging the river for the head that he lost. Asik train, two heads come up. Amarav avdi nami hachi. This thing like, is that like normal for to buy to you look for one thing and you find two of them? Asrinu niele, and he said, you know what? Neither you can't eat either of these because clearly this is a place where people dump the heads of or lose the heads of animals, and so you don't know if you picked up the one that you were the kosher one that you were working with, or a random other one that maybe was not kosher. Amalei Rav Kana Rav Asi Rav, so Rav Kana and Rav Asi asked him, "Di surah shliche dater lo shliche." So what? You're saying that the rove is all of a sudden the rove is unkosher meat. Amalahu di surah shliche tfei. No, it's Rav said indeed. Um, uh, it's more common. A non-kosher meat is more common. So. Um, so from this is the source of the idea that Rav holds the basar shenisal minayin is is forbidden because Rav Chana and Rav Asi clearly understood that most of the meat in town is kosher, so this should also be kosher. But Rav, we're assuming his problem was that it was basar shenichal minayin. So the Gemara says, so what? Like, so this was his psak, right? It's like this. If this was obviously the reason for his psak, then that's a good deduction that was his opinion. Whereas there's parvasa da'ove kochavim pavai. No, this was a port of the kochavim. So there were a lot of so Rav's opinion was that there were too many of the kochavim here. There was no rove of kosher meat. That was his problem. Maybe it wasn't the basar shenisal problem. Tell you that, and how do I know this? That might have been his the reason. The kamar lahu the surah shlichitvei, because he said in the story he said um, uh, it's more likely that this was a non-kosher head that came up. So we don't know for sure from here that the real reason for Rav was basar nisal minayin. El Rav hecha achal bisra. So how did Rav ever eat meat? If it's not normal to always be watching the meat. So Gemara says b'shate de lo alim enimine. Indeed, he would only eat meat that was constantly supervised. Or you could say, b'tzaira of a chasuma. Or if the meat was packaged and sealed, okay, then you don't have the concern that a raven came and unwrapped the package or brought a similar package or whatever. It's not the same concern. You don't have to worry under those circumstances about basar shenisal minayin, biname or b'simana, or there was some kind of identifying mark in the meat. That you could tell that this was the one that was left here and it wasn't exchanged by a bird. Rabbi Baravuna would cut his meat into triangles, so that he would know, that was an unusual thing, and if he left the meat unsupervised and he found it there again, it wasn't exchanged by a bird with another piece, because he had this unusual method of cutting the meat. Rav Habakaz Rav Chanan Chasne. Rav was going to visit his son-in-law. And he's crossing a river, and just as he got there, good timing, the ferry was coming to greet him. So he wasn't going to have to wait. Azal Kama Bava. Misline. Amar Mabara Kaasi Lapi Yoma Tava Lagav. The ferry's coming just as I got here. It's a good omen. Must be indicating that there's going to be a nice meal when I get to my lodgings tonight. When I get to my son-in-law's, they're going to be having a party, and I'm going to have some good food. Oslo Kama Baba. So he gets there and he looked in the door. And Odik Beviza Didasha. He looked through the door. Chaze Chavyasa D'Italia. And he saw that there were butchered animals, hanging there, ready to be prepared. Tarafa Baba, he knocks on the door. Nafuk Asukuli al Malape. And everybody comes to the door. Oh, Rav is here. We're gonna go greet him. Asa Tabachiname. And even the butchers came to greet him. And they left the meat all alone. Lo alim Rav Einamine. And Rav, he thought he was a quick thinker. He's like, nobody's looking after the meat. I'm going to make sure I keep my eye on the meat to make sure that no bird comes and exchanges it. Amalahu, Echu Hashta. And he said to the butchers, if like if I were relying on you, you would have fed non-kosher meat to my grandchildren. Okay, in other words, like, what are you doing not supervising the meat? It's a good thing I was here and kept my eye on the meat. And lo rav me'ahu bisra, and he didn't eat from the he didn't eat. Hold on one second. Okay. So lo rav me'ahu bisra. Rav didn't eat from the meat that night. My Tama, why not? I mean, he made it kosher by keeping an eye on it. Imishumi alume, if it's because Basar Shin Selminayan Holo Yalim, he didn't take his eyes off it, so no problem. Ella Denachish. Maybe because he felt bad because he was using this divination. Like he took the fairy incident as a sign of good things going to happen to him, and now he felt guilty about it, or something, and that's why he didn't eat from. Rav, but Rav said, that's not divination. Divination has to be when you completely rely on some omen, right? Like Eliezer, right? Eliezer, who said, if Rivka, if the girl that I find is, if Rivka is going to, draw water for all my camels, then she's the one, and he acted on it. Or Yonasan, who he said if there was if the he had this set up this thing with shooting an arrow, and he said, like, if the arrow falls in a certain place, then it's a sign that I should attack the police and I'll be successful. And he acted on it. So that is nichush. But Rav, who's like just observing, like, oh, maybe there's going to be a party tonight. This looks like this is my lucky day. That's not nichush. Elo sudas reshus havai. No, you know why Rav didn't eat? Because it was a sudas reshus, not a sudas mitzvah. Rav lo mahane misane misudas reshus. Rav, that was his practice, not to eat meat at a sudas reshus. He felt this way because he was a Talmud Chacham, and that he felt that was the way he should act. Okay, another story. Sorry, not another story, but some wrap up here. Rav Badik b'Mabara. Rav would, this was an omen to him if the fairy showed up at the right time. Shmuel Badik b'Sifra. Shmuel would consider it a good omen using a book, right, a scroll. He would open it to a certain pasuk, to wherever, and would derive something from where he opened it. Rabbi Yochanan would ask, like we often find in the Gemara, that you find a child and say, what did you learn today, or what are you learning, and they quote you a pasuk, and that would be some kind of stimma for you. Kulishnei de Rav, all the years of Rav have a kasav le Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan would write to him, L'kadam Rabbeinu shebeBavel. He would greet him in a letter by saying, to our master, our teacher in Bavel, meaning Rav. Kinach Nafshi, when Rav died, have a custom with Shmuel. So Rabbi Yochanan would write to Shmuel, L'kadam chavereinu shebeBavel, to our colleague in Bavel, right? Amar le'adli midi de Rabbe ana. Like Shmuel says, what? I'm not his teacher. I don't know something. There's nothing that I don't know that I could teach Rabbi Yochanan. Kasov Sharle Ibura de Shitin Shnei. He sent him calculations of intercalation of years for 60 years. That was Shmuel's expertise, one of his expertise. And he sent him, like, look how much I know about intercalation of the calendar. Amar, so Rabbi Yochanan said, Hashta Chushbina B'Yama Yada. So Rabbi Yochanan says, oh, the guy's a good mathematician, right? That doesn't mean he knows his Torah. Kasav, Shadalei Tleiser Gamle Sfeked Trefta. So Shmuel says, okay, you want Torah? I'm going to send you 13 camel loads of incidents in which I resolved a suffix of trefa, or not, a suffix of trefa. That's Torah. So, like, look, I do know something. Amar Isli Rav Bavel. So Rabbi Yochanan was indeed impressed, and he says, "Oh, I have a teacher in Bavel. There's somebody in Bavel I can still learn from, Shmuel. I'm going to go and visit him." Before he said that, he said to a child, "Psakli psuke, what are you learning?" Amalei Shmuel Meis, right? The pasuk in Shmuel that says, and Shmuel died. So this is an obvious omen. Amar Shmamina Nachnach Shmuel. Oh, I better not take the trip. Shmuel's no longer alive, according to this omen, so I'm not taking the trip. Velohi, but the Gemara says it wasn't the case. Lo Shachif Shmuel hadn't died. Rabbi Yochanan. Hashem sent this omen to Rabbi Yochanan so that he shouldn't have to make the try. Didn't need to take the trouble to make this trip. So it was a false omen. Tanya, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Bayis Tinok V'Isha. When it comes to building a house, having a baby, or marrying a woman, Alpi Afalpi she'ein nachash, even though like don't act on, totally on sign on these omens. Yesh siman, but you can kind of take an indication if there's some kind of omen that says, this seems like a good idea, that you should take it into account. Amar Vahudis Chazik Tlosazimne. You know what? It's got to be a three-time omen. You can't rely on that, or you can't be influenced by a single omen. If it's something that happens three times, Yosef Binyamin Yaakov says, Yosef is gone. That's one omen. Shimon is gone. He didn't come back with you. That's a second omen. If Binyamin goes and doesn't come back, then that's going to be a real omen. Then that's going to indicate to me that my whole family is doomed, basically. So that's the source for a three-time omen. Okay. Rav Huna asked Rav, B'charuzin mahu. What if you have pieces of meat that were strung on a string? So do you have a problem with the Basar Shin Salamin Ayin or not? Because is the bird gonna, it's one thing to think that a bird has a piece of meat and is going to exchange it for your piece of meat, but what about a whole string? Don't be an idiot. Harayz a siman. That's clearly a siman that this was your meat and no bird exchanged it. Or some read this as follows. Rav Huna said, "B'charuzin harei zasima." Not with the story and with Rav asking him don't ask stupid questions, but Rav Huna just said in Rav's name, this is a good siman if the meat is strung together on a string. Rav Nachman min Harda. Iklal legabe Rav Kana lefum nara b'mali yom kippur. Rav Nachman visited Rav Kana in this place called Pum Nara on Erev Yom Kippur. Asu arve shadu kavde v'chulyasa, and birds came and raining down livers and kidneys on the street. Amalei shkol biachal ha'idna dehatera shchiach tvei. Rav Kana says, you know what? Take advantage of this. It's Erev Yom Kippur. You know who's doing all the shechita today? Jews are doing all the shechita today because they need a suda for Erev Yom Kippur. So today we can assume that all the meat, the rove of the meat, is kosher. And so even though the birds are bringing it from who knows where, it's wherever they're bringing it from, it's also Erev Yom Kippur. So we can assume the meat's kosher. Rav Chia bar Avin itmar le karkasha beinei dana. Rav Chia bar Avin lost a karkasha colon of a kosher animal in the wine cellar, and then he found it. Also, Rav Huna came to Rav Huna. Can I assume this is the one? Amalei islach siman gavei. Do you have some kind of mark on it? He said no. Islach tvius eina begavei. Do you recognize it? Right? Does it look to you like there's no specific mark on it that you could point to, but it looks like the one I lost. Can you recognize it? Amalei said yes. It looks exactly like the one I lost. So then. Okay, so you can eat it. Okay. Rav Chanina Chaza itvad le gabo de bisra. Rav Chanina had lost the back of an animal, and then he found it. Asal Kamid Rav Nachman came to Rav Nachman. Islach siman gabe. Do you have an identifying mark on it? No. Islach tavius ein begabe. But do you recognize it? Amalei said yes. Imkain zil shkol. Same ruling. If it looks to you like the one you lost, then it's fine. You don't have to worry that it's a different piece. Rav Nosson bar Abaye itva le kibura de tchelta. Rav Nachman lost a spool of tchelas, right? And then he found it. Asal kamid Rav Chisa. Amarle islach simon begabe. Do you know? Now the question is, is it really tchelas? Tchelas is technically, it has to come from a chilazon, right? But what if maybe this is a spool of a different type of color, a different type of dye that looks the same. Maybe it's a problem. Maybe you can't, not that you can't eat it. Maybe you can't make tzitzis from it. So Amalei Simon, Islach Simon Begave, is there any kind of identifying mark? Amalei Lo, he said no. Islach Tvius Ein Begave, does it look familiar to you? Amalei said yes. In Kain Zil Shkol, so go and you can use it for tzitzis. Amar Rava. Rava says, Mereish Havamina. Originally, I thought Simana Adiv meets Fiusena, that a siman identifying mark is better than just recognizing something. Deha Mahadrinan Avedta Besimana, because when it comes to returning an Aveda, if somebody can provide you with a siman, with an identifying mark, then you can give it back to him. But not if he says, "Oh, that looks like it was mine." That's not a good enough reason to give it back to somebody. So it looks like a siman is superior to a superior way to identify something than tefiyusena, than just recognition. Hashta to shamtinhu lahanishmata. But now that I've heard these previous rulings, amina tvius ena adifa, I would say that that recognition is actually better. Because if you don't say that, how can a blind person sleep with his wife, right? Because he can't see, there's no siman, right? But he recognizes her, he knows her voice, he knows he's familiar with her, so it's fine. So that's actually better than a sima. And not even blind people, but when it's dark, how do you know that the woman in your bed is your wife? You recognize her voice. So tfius ayin is better than the sima. Might as well finish up to the Mishnah. I'm Rav Yitzchak Breder of Misharshia. Rav Yitzchak said, Teda, and here's more proof that the Tviya Zion is better than the Siman. The Ilu Beitrev Amre, if two witnesses come to a court and testify, Planya de Haisimane, Vahaisimane Katal Nafsha, a person with this birthmark or whatever, we know that we saw a person with this birthmark kill somebody. Then locally in LA, then that's not a good enough identification, right? It could be somebody else with a birthmark, with a siman. But if they say this is the guy, I recognize this is the guy who committed the murder, then Katlina LA, we accept that testimony, even in a capital case. Amar Vashi. Vashi has another proof. Teda. Dilu Amar le inish l'shluchet. The person says to his shaliach, Karye leplanya v'haisimana v'haisimana. Go and summon for me this guy with again, I'll use a birthmark as an example. He's got a birthmark on his right cheek. So Safek Yadale, Safek Le Yadale. So then the shaliach is always in doubt. He's not certain if he's got the right guy, because could be somebody else has that birthmark. If you but if you go say, do you know John Doe? He says, yeah, I know John Doe. Then go bring him to me. Then then he knows who he's being asked to bring. Okay, all right, and we'll pick up tomorrow at the Mishnah.